by putting out something with limited sizing like that, you're excluding a lot of the population who not only for your benefit, you would want to be able to purchase your product, but you're also like, you're basically saying that this isn't for you, which is horrible.
Hello and welcome to the Yarn Over podcast. I am your host, Sarah Jane, and today we're going to be talking to Janine, who is Knits and Knots WPG on Instagram. Janine is a Winnipeg-based independent crochet and knitwear designer. She specialises in size inclusive sweaters, and she also gives some hints and tips into customizing those makes to really fit any unique body shape. I'm really excited to be talking to her today. We're going to be talking about her crochet journey and also all about grading. So if grading is something that has puzzled you, if you don't really know what it is, then stay tuned because we have lots of information in this episode.
Have you heard the news? My How to Crochet Handy Reference Guide has had a revamp. This 26-page ebook with exclusive video instructions is perfect for beginners or those who love to have all the information at their fingertips. Get yours now at www.bellacococrochet.com/ebook.
Hello, Janine. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for wanting to talk to me.
I really have been so looking forward to chatting to you. So for those people who haven't come across you before or already know a little bit about you, can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Yes. So my name is Janine and my business is Knits and Knots, which started off as a finished product business where I sold hats and scarves and, you know, all the craft sale items. And I did lots of craft sales and markets and sold on Etsy and everything. But I was finding that my Instagram was growing to a pretty decent number and people were starting to follow me from all over the world and asking for patterns. And I was like, what is a pattern? And then once I kind of started diving into that and exploring what a crochet pattern or a knitting pattern is, I loved it. And I loved the change of pace from making the same thing over and over again, which I did enjoy that while I was in university. But then after I needed some new, I don't know, I needed a change of pace, and being able to design allowed me for each project to be different, but yet the same steps. So yeah. I don't know. So that was yeah. Let's see. So I've been designing since 2017 full time pretty much.
Yeah.
And yeah, now I just do independent designs. I work with a couple yarn companies and I wrote a book.
Yes. We'll talk about the book later because I love it. But first of all, so you started out making hats and scarves, but when did you actually first pick up a hook?
Okay. Well, so what happened was for Christmas in 2015, I asked for, I kind of just said in passing that I wanted to learn to knit and crochet. And my mom remembered that, which was so sweet. Nice. And so she keeps saying, like, joking that I owe her like a commission from every sale because she like got me into it. And she got me this round knitting loom. It's like a circle with pegs on it. Have you seen those from Michael's or whatever? Yeah, and so she just got me one of those and a ball of yarn, and I just loved how meditative it was and ended up going out getting more yarn, and then I started watching some YouTube videos on other things I can do with this loom. And then I saw people using the same yarn or making similar things but with this little hook thing, and I was like, what is this all about? And then so I kept watching YouTube videos on all these different techniques on real knitting and crochet, and eventually I just had to teach myself. Once I had like a million hats that all looked the same from this loom, I thought I need to try something new. And first I tried knitting actually, and that took a while. My first project was horrendous. I still have it though, and it brings me joy. And then I tried to crochet, and that just clicked a lot more than knitting did. Or I don't know if it necessarily clicked more, but I enjoyed it more. And so I would have learned, that was a long answer to your question, but I would have learned in the beginning of 2016. Yeah.
So from 2016 to 2017, becoming a full-time designer, that's good going.
I know now that, yeah, that's what happened though. Yeah. I was in my 3rd or 4th year of university. I ended up being there for about 5 years, and my interest in school was dwindling a little bit at the same time as my business was growing. So I don't know, I was losing interest in what I was studying, which was food science. So not at all related to knitting or crocheting. And so I would find myself in class, instead of following along with the lectures, I would be watching knitting YouTube videos.
Yeah, it's funny sometimes how your life just goes in a completely different aspect to what you think it's going to go. But what a journey. That's amazing. Well done you.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of wearables. So what you call sweaters, I would call jumpers.
Jumpers, yeah.
Yeah, jumpers and cardigans. So at what point did you kind of take the swerve into going into that kind of thing?
Okay, well, after so many hats and scarves, the next thing that I tried was actually bralettes. So I was making all this kind of like beachwear, bathing suit type things. And then that just seemed a lot easier to me than a full-on sweater for some reason. And then, the first garment that I made that actually got me any traction was this like long vest that I have. It's kind of like a bohemian, beachy, flowy, oversized vest with fringe on the bottom. And then I actually released that pattern only with one size back in the day, because I didn't even realize, like, if one size fits all, I said.
Yeah.
It did not fit all. I've since updated it, but at the time, I just thought, well, here's what I did. I wrote it down. I don't think I probably was not a great pattern at all, and I put it out there, and but I feel like that's what you have to do in the beginning. It's no one's good in the beginning at anything when you try something new. And anyway, then the first sweater that really got me traction after that was the rosebud raglan, and I feel like that kind of put me on the map as a crochet designer.
Yeah.
So
that kind of, you touched on one size doesn't fit all. So that kind of takes us into size inclusivity. So for those who don't know what that is, can you explain a little bit more?
Sure. So with that first thing I was talking about, where I put out one size, which was my size, obviously that doesn't fit everyone in the world. And by putting out something with limited sizing like that, you're excluding a lot of the population who, not only for your benefit, you would want to be able to purchase your product, but you're also you're basically saying that this isn't for you, which is horrible. And so now, with the sweater that I was talking about, the rosebud raglan, that was the first garment that I put out in that full size range. And I didn't know how to grade for plus sizes at that time. So I actually hired a grader for that and paid somebody to do it for me so that it would be done properly. I've since updated the pattern, and I kind of scrapped it and completely rewrote it now that I know more about grading and shaping and all that. But at the time, it was a really great option, I think. And I feel like that's why the pattern did so well, was because I was able to reach a larger audience and a wider range of sizes. So,
it is really important. So what kind of size range do you do from now with your patterns?
So now all of my garments are written in 9 sizes, or if there's any hybrid sizes, then it will be at least from extra small to 5X. So in inches, that would be like a 28-inch to 62-inch bust measurement.
Yeah. So you talked about grading there. Grading is still a subject that I'm still learning a lot about, but I can probably say that you've pretty much perfected it now, haven't you? Because in your book, I mean, I'm showing this on camera now, but those who are listening, I have Janine's book in front of me, which is Modern Crochet Sweaters. There are some amazing, well, they're all amazing.
Thank you.
I admitted to you actually on Instagram that I've never made a garment, although saying that I did start making a cardigan. I never finished it because I just didn't finish. But I think one of yours is going to be my first.
Oh my
And
God.
you recommended one to me, didn't you? That's really good for like your beginner project.
Oh, yes. I remember telling you. I do not remember which one I told you though.
Yeah. I think it was towards the back of the book. I'll try and remember, and I'll leave it in the show notes because we'll leave all the information in the show notes ananyway.
What has
But yeah,
stopped you from making a garment? I just have to ask.
It's scary.
It's not scary.
Yeah, I guess if you've never done one before, it does feel scary. And I think for me, I know that if I made one myself, people would ask me for a pattern, and then I'm like, okay, but then I have to know a bit more about grading, and it still scares me a little bit when it comes to grading. So I think that's probably one of the things that has put me off. But if I start with one of yours, I can gain my confidence and then I can go from there. So I think that's definitely for me. A lot of people ask me for baby makes when I had my first daughter, and I says no, because this cardigan or whatever I make will end up with too long arms, too short on the body. I can't do it. So I'm going to start with yours. I have some yarn in mind ready. But yeah, I'll let you know how I get on.
Perfect. I can't wait.
But yeah, you have grading throughout or you've graded your patterns so that you offer all those sizes. So can you talk a little bit about grading for those who don't really know what it is, and how do you work through that? Where do you start with it and then bring it into your patterns?
Okay, well, grading a pattern just means that you are translating one version of that item into other sizes. And so the challenge with garments is that, okay, first of all, there are standard sizes that you can look at. So I don't know if in the UK you use the same thing, but do you use the Craft Yarn Council for measurements and stuff?
I do personally, yes, okay. But I know there are some people who won't know what that is.
Right. So, well, at least in North America and a lot of crochet and knitting publications, the Craft Yarn Council is kind of like a standard sizing chart and has all these measurements and stuff, so that within all different magazines and books and publications and everything, all the, the hook sizes are all have the same names and the different sizes. So like, for example, I fall under a size small under this sizing chart, which is like a 32 to a 34 inch bust. And then the next size up is 36 to 38. So while not every person will fall perfectly into these sizes, obviously, it's just a way for people to create patterns that are all like if you're a small in one pattern, you're most likely small in a different pattern if it uses the same sizing chart. Obviously, every pattern you have to still check the measurements and stuff, but yeah, that's what that's for. And so basically when I'm creating a new garment, I will make it to fit me because I know what size I fit under. And if you were making yours for like a different model or someone else who's going to wear it in your photographs or whatever, you'd probably make it for whatever their size is. But I'm in my photos. I'm the only body I got. So I use mine. And then once I figure out all the measurements and everything, and lots of times I have to make it and I hold it up in the mirror, it doesn't fit, rip it out, try again. And once I get it to fit me, and I'm happy with it, then I'll write out all the steps. Lots of times I'll do it while I'm going as well, so I don't forget, because there's a lot that goes into making a sweater or whatever. But yeah, so then I'll open a Google Doc or a Word doc or whatever, and I'll just write it all out. And then I'll open Excel. This is where it gets fun. And I'll line up all the sizes. So I'll have like extra small, small, medium, XL, 2X, 3X, 4X, 5X. And then usually the first step in a sweater is I'll figure out the bust size that I want each size to have. So based on that chart that I was talking about, I know what my target measure, I know what the body measurements are. So if for example, my sweater has 2 inches of positive ease, which means it fits me with like 2 inches it's 2 inches larger than my bust. So it would be a little bit loose. Yeah. Then if I want 2 inches of positive ease in all the sizes, I would just go up by increments of 4, since they're all kind of like 4 inches apart from each other, each size. Yeah. maybe it sounds complicated when I'm saying it, but that's really not that's not like a hard part. That's kind of the easy part, kind of figuring out what all the measurements that I want their garments to have. And then the rest is sort of like a puzzle, like, because you know all the measurements you need, and you just have to figure out how many stitches and how many rows will equal that. Yeah. And I don't know, obviously you're not, for your like grading your first garment, you're not going to jump into like a really complicated raglan or anything like that. But if you start off with like pretty much 2 like squares with maybe simple sleeves or like a loose cardigan, it's, I don't know, you can start off simple. It doesn't have to be too complicated. And yeah.
And then go from there, because I think I would want to, like, I would probably overcomplicate things. That's probably why I'm not getting any further than what I've got already.
Well, honestly, you have so much crochet knowledge. You're probably a much better crocheter than I am, to be honest. I'm just familiar with like shaping and like what aspects need to change for different sizes, but you're probably way ahead of me already. I bet you could do it if you tried.
Yeah, I will try. I really hope you're enjoying this episode of the Yarn Over podcast, but I couldn't wait to jump in and tell you all about the brand new Bella Coco Crochet Homeware collection. This stunning textured collection contains the briar blanket, the jasmine cushion, the succulent plant holders, the fern wall hanging, and the elm draft excluder. If you want to find out more about this collection, then head to bellacococrochet.com/the-homeware-collection. So when we're looking at gauge and sizing and things, when we're looking at grading and sizing, gauge is really important, isn't it? To make that gauge swatch before you actually start your project. Otherwise, if you get that wrong, you're going to end up with something that doesn't look like it's supposed to.
Exactly.
I know a lot of people don't like to do gauge swatches, myself included. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, do I really have to do it? But I think the answer, especially with garments, is yes, you really must do it.
Especially with garments. There are some things that, I don't know, maybe sometimes I'll just, if I'm following a pattern, I'll start it. And then as I'm like just beginning, I'll measure my work just to check. So like, I guess that counts as sort of checking gauge. But yeah, for a garment, if you're following a garment pattern, you definitely want to check gauge if you want it to fit. If you don't care if it fits, then you don't have to do it. But
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, then. So for those who are getting into designing garments, do you have any particular tips on, I mean, we've talked about your workflow, but do you have any tips of where they can start to learn or, you know, get into that grading side of things?
Well, I would say start with a simpler piece. So maybe something that is almost like a rectangle with like if you're doing some kind of top, maybe it would be a rectangle up to this point, and then maybe you just add a little bit here. You know what I mean? For the neckline. I've seen a lot of people do that and then make like just a solid rectangle as the back, and then you could just add a few rows here for sleeves, and then you're done. Like it doesn't have to be intense for your first one. And then I would say definitely just give it a shot and see how you do, and send it to a tech editor, because then your tech editor will tell you where you went wrong or if you're on the right track, and probably give you some tips and advice on where to look for, I don't know, you know, more information if you're lacking on anything. Yeah, that's my number one tip, tech editor. They'll solve all your problems.
Yeah. And this spreadsheet that you're talking about, I do love a spreadsheet. Do you have it all already worked out, or do you have to change it every time you do a different garment?
I do start
as in like the main time. So like the formulas and things that you use, are they always the same, or do you just start afresh?
I pretty much start fresh for each one. There are times I'll reference old ones. So if it's like a simple circular yoke is what I was trying to say, then I'll go back and see what calculations I did just to make sure I'm doing the same thing and I'm not, I don't know, make sure I'm on the right track. So sometimes I'll do that. But I usually start completely fresh and only look at other ones if I have a question, or just like if it's a pattern that has a similar stitch or whatever to an older one, then I'll double check them. But yeah, I start fresh every time, and then I use another page in my Excel sheet to to calculate all the yardage as well.
Okay.
Because I know that some people, they'll write the pattern out and then they'll send it to their testers and have the testers measure or weigh their project to see how much yarn they used, and that's how they'll determine the yardage or how many meters or whatever per size. But I actually calculate all the stitches. And so, like, for example, if I made size small of something, I will pretty much break up the whole pattern line by line, how many stitches are in each row, and then just like sum it all up, and I'll know how many stitches are in my entire thing, and I'll know how much it weighs, and I'll know the yardage information of the yarn I use. So I'll figure out how many yards I used, and then I'll do the same thing. It's just like adding up all the stitches, and then I cross multiply to figure out how much yardage I used in all the other sizes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow is all I can say. That's amazing. I really do need to learn how to do this, I think, because it does sound really fun. I think once you got your head around it, you know, the satisfaction of being able to work that out must be so cool.
The coolest part is once I finish the pattern and what I think is good, and I have it edited and I send it to testers, and then I see the first finished thing, like it actually worked. It's like the best feeling.
Oh, amazing. And do you have people make every size? Do you have testers that make every size of your pattern?
I do. I try to always have 3 people make every size. I didn't used to do that, but I found that in case you get ghosted or someone drops out for whatever reason, I want to make sure I at least have 1 in the end, ideally 2, so that, I don't know, just so I can make sure that they got similar numbers for everything and no mistakes. But yeah, so like when I did testing for the book, I did it all at the same time. And so I was testing for 20 patterns that all have 9 sizes and 3, like it was a lot of people. It's like a full-time job just to run the tester groups for a couple months there.
I'm sure. Yeah. And if people want to sign up to be one of your testers, they can do that via your website, can't they?
Yeah, it's I'm sure you'll have the link, but it's knitsandots.ca, and then there's in like one of the top corners it says become a pattern tester, and you just sign up.
Yeah.
Anyone. No, you don't have to have any like experience or anything. Anyone can do it. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll leave that all in the show notes so people can go and check it out. But yeah, that honestly, it just blows my mind, the amount of work that goes into your patterns. And you always, every time I look at your Instagram, you always seem to have something new as well. It's like, how quick do you crochet?
I know. Well, while I was working on the book, I feel like I had a year, like, okay, so I wrote the book in 2020. And then in 2021, that was when we were kind of just doing edits and stuff. It was supposed to come out that year, but it got delayed till February of this year. But anyway, I felt like I was kind of in this limbo stage, and I just could not, I don't know, it's like this weight on my shoulder was that this book it wasn't done yet. And so I was kind of working on a lot of projects that year that are coming out this year. So I feel like I got a good head start. So it might look like I'm working on a lot of stuff. I kind of am working on a lot of stuff, but I also did a lot of it last year too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Great.
But other than that, I put out, like, I have a couple different contracts with different companies to do a pattern a month. And then I'm trying to have my own kind of independent releases too, because those are fun and creative, and I like to do those. So yeah, it's a lot.
Definitely. So what do you have coming up for the rest of this year, 2022?
Well, I have a balloon collection, I'm calling it. So this is one of the things I was working on last year. I started dyeing yarn, teaching myself to dye yarn. Amazing. And I think there are 10 colorways that are all floral inspired. And my partner, Matt, helped me dye some of them too. So that was fun for us to do together. Yeah. And there are going to be, I don't know how many patterns yet, but a couple knit and crochet patterns to go along with it. And then this spring, I will put out a pre-order for it and dye up all the yarn and send them kind of like as kits. So like you could get the yarn and the pattern, or just the yarn or whatever. And yeah, I don't know what to expect because I've never done anything like this before, but this was like kind of just like a for fun for me project. So
I think sometimes you do have to do those kind of projects, don't you, just to like flex your creativity. I think it's good having being able to work with companies and different things, but quite often you have something that you need to work towards, don't you, whereas things for yourself you can just really let that
Exactly.
creative side flow.
And it's so great working with companies. I love it. But there's I work differently when I'm working like towards a deadline that someone set for me with like some parameters on it versus like creating something just to create it, like just for fun. It's, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like that's when I surprise myself, is when I just do it with no pressure, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I can find that I've got so many deadlines, and a lot of these deadlines are things that you don't see, like with my subscription boxes and stuff. Like there's deadlines for that people don't necessarily see on Instagram and things. And quite often when I've got so much to do, all I want to do is that one project that came into my head at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Like all I want to do is that, because that's where the creativity flows.
That's when I come up with all my ideas, is when I'm like about to fall asleep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why does that happen?
I don't know. It's very annoying. Like, let me sleep. Give me the good ideas during the day when I'm trying to think of them. Yeah, with that Bloom collection I was just talking about, I actually just woke up at like 3 in the morning this one night, and I was just wide awake and I couldn't sleep, and I just had this idea, which is this Bloom collection, and that's what happened. I just woke up and thought of it, and then I created a little Pinterest inspiration board, and
at 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the morning, that's right.
Oh, nice. I love it. Well, I can't wait to see that. Can you let everybody know how they can find you on social media? And we've already talked about your website and things, but how can people one, find you, and also where can they find your book?
So on Instagram, I'm Knits and Knots WPG. It stands for Winnipeg, where I live in Canada. And I'm the same handle on pretty much everything. And the book can be found so I have some links on my website on knitsandknots.ca that you'll see right away that have a bunch of, it's available on Amazon. I have all the Amazon links, and Barnes and Noble and Indigo and Books Depository, all these bookstores that I've never heard of, and so you can check that out if you want.
It really is such a beautiful book.
Oh, and thank you.
The photography is amazing.
Thank you.
Not only are you super talented, but you are absolutely beautiful.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
These pictures are just insane.
Thank you.
So congratulations.
Well, it definitely helped having a great photographer who is like a master editor. She did such a good job. And then for a couple of the shoots, I did have my makeup done and my hair done and stuff, and that made me feel like a queen, so that helped too. It's such a special time, isn't it? And it must have been so amazing to finally get your hands on it after working on it for so long. So I really hope that everybody's going to go and check that out, and thank you.
Say hello to you on social media. But thank you so much for joining us on the Yarn Over podcast. It's been
thanks for having me.
Fantastic speaking to you.
You too.
Take care.
Bye.